Say it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. They all getting featured. Say it's Tanesha's tip. Coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. It's your girl Tanesha, straight magic. The greatest book reviews, let's get at it. She not here to offend, she just honest.
Hi, and welcome to Tanesha's Tips. Today we are going to review the fourth episode of the Burbs, and this week's episode, or this episode I should say, the name of it is a 9 on the tension scale. And of course it was a 9 on the tension scale. It really was. It showed like everything under the sun. So we start off with Samira walking miles outside, as she always does. She runs into I guess, I don't know her name, but she's the wife of the police officer that acts as shoe size. She ran into her and her daughter. They were out for their walk. And you can tell that the mom is out walking and she's dragging along her daughter because obviously she's a little healthy. And I'm not trying to fat shame anybody, but that's, and the daughter is just not with it. But as she's walking, she stops Samira and she's like, "Oh, it's good to see you." And Samira's like, what's your name again? Anyway, she only seen her one time, and so they recollect her memory or whatever. And she says, "Oh, don't worry, it's mommy brain," or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, okay." So then she asks her if she's coming to the party Saturday. And she said, "Party? What party?" So come to find out, there's this annual block party that the HOA puts on. And of course, the HOA president is the girl's mom, which they kind of revealed that last episode. And I'm like, oh my god, it's only fitting. Kind of goes with everything. So she brings out the flyer and shows Samira, and Samira's like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess we'll be coming out." She said, "Yeah, because the only thing you have to do is come out of your come out of your house." So just a small talk alone was just like, really, girl? But she basically was giving her some unsolicited advice about how when she had her daughter, that she didn't come outside until after the baby had like 2 or 3 rounds of vaccinations or something. And so Samira is looking at her like, "Okay, girl, really?" But she was like, "How did that work out?" And she was like, it was grueling, but it was the norm," and something she said crazy or whatever. Anyway, we'll fast forward. They have their annual or their weekly wine night with the other neighbors, and they're all telling Samira like what they found out and everything. And somebody brings up, has Rob ever had an attitude or like really bad temper with her? And she's like, "No." And she was like, "Why did you say that?" Well, Lynn ended up telling her that while she was babysitting Miles, she was doing a little snooping of her own, and she found a file that said that he had a really bad aggressive temper or whatever, and he might have gotten in trouble. And so Samira kind of brushed it off and was like, "Well, what kid doesn't have any issues or whatever, or any outbursts or whatever?" Kind of chalked it up and threw it to the side. So then Todd comes out and says that, his name, Robert, was on one of the walls in the Victorian. And so he had proof of it because he took a picture of it on his phone. As he was showing Samira, he was like, "Don't touch my phone," which Todd is really quirky and funny, but he's one of those people that know information, like just... Sorry, that was thunder, and now my pup is kind of scared. So anyway, yeah, so he shows her that or whatever, and they get to talking or whatever, and she still brushes it off, but she's like looking at them like, So he texts her, like Rob texts her, Samira, and ask her when she's coming home. And they were like, "Ooh, that's kind of controlling," or whatever. And she was like, "Relax, Miles needs to eat," and she basically letting them know, "I still breastfeed," So she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get going," and she went home. When she got into the door, all the lights was off, and then she sees the shadow of her husband with this knife in his hand, and it looks to be blood, but it was not. He was actually chopping up pomegranate and trying to surprise her with with a pomegranate salad with feta cheese and something else that she liked or whatever. And she screamed, and so then the baby started screaming, and he was like, "Relax, what did you think?" And so she said, "You walking around here in the dark with a knife with blood on it," which to me, I would have thought the same thing, like, what is going on? But anyway, so she was kind of looking over, and then she was like, "Oh, whatever." And so she went and got the baby or whatever and soothed the baby. And they talked a little bit, but then, so I guess they're trying to work it out, because they hit a little, speed bump after all that happened last episode with them going into the Victorian and hitting that pipe and searching for Allison's, body. Anyway, long story short, so funny. They get up the next day and it's the block party. They come out. Well, you know what? Let me go back. Before the block party, Agnes, the HOA president, shows up at Lynn's house, and she tells her, "Hey, the meat man is coming by. How many packs of meat can we put in your freezer?" Well, as we all know, Lynn is always acting crazy. She don't want nobody to come in her house, which is weird. And I was like, what is she hiding in there, right? They always make mention of her husband, Marty, or whatever, but we've never seen anything outside his picture. And I always thought that was crazy. So what they end up saying, or what she ended up telling her, was to go away, and she's not coming to the block party. And she asked her, "Well, how many pies are you going to make?" And she was like, "What do you mean?" Well, she said, "Well, Marty used to always make pies or whatever." And she said, "Well, I'm not making any pies." She said, "I always put them down for a baker's dozen." And she was like, "I'm not doing that." And she closed the door in Agnes' face. Okay, that was the end of that. Now we get to the day of the party, and both Samira and Rob just come out the house with Miles, of course, and they look like the picture of a happy family or whatever. So they come, and immediately the cop's wife and her two friends come up and do this really weird introduction of each other or whatever. One of the girls, I think her name is Diane or something, she was like, "Hi, I'm Diane." And she was like, "I just said that." I'm like, ooh, cringe. And I thought that the other girl was familiar. The other girl was the girl who actually came up to Naveen in the pool, at the pool hall or whatever, and got a drink from him, and he actually was talking her up. Anyway, it got kind of weird, and so Rob said, "Well, I'm going to go over here or whatever and see what Naveen is up to." He gets to Naveen, and Naveen is basically over there starting up his DJ thing, which was so funny. Todd comes over and says, "Hey, are you going to get this party started or whatever?" And he's like, "Yeah." He was like, "Play some tunes." He ends up playing Ludacris. I forget the name of it, but whatever. He ended up playing some Ludacris song or whatever. And when I tell you, Todd was in his element. He was in there jamming, but he was doing his own thing. It was cute though. So as the song starts playing, the girl that he actually met at the pool hall came over, and she starts flirting with him and everything. And so they get into their whole discussion. Turns out that she's a widow, and her husband passed away via a car accident or something like that. And so before she got over there, Rob asked if he knew about it. He said, "Yeah, we did a whole trauma bonding thing." So he already know what's going on with her, and she knows what's going on with him, I think. Well, we think until we don't think anymore. So then Rob ends up leaving and letting them go ahead and commingle, and went back to where his wife was to see if he could save her. But she was still standing with the real weird ones or whatever. And so that was still awkward until the cop's wife was like, "Why don't you go over there and take a shift on the grill with all the other dads or whatever?" Knowing good well this man couldn't cook. He should have just told her, "No, I don't cook," or "I can't cook," or whatever. But he went over there or whatever, because Samira was like, "Yeah, go ahead." And he was like, "Oh, okay." So anyway, fast forward, they were talking, and it was just some moments where things had happened where they hit a lull, and the girl said something before she left that gave Samira pause. Well, then when Agnes came over and got her daughter and told her that she had to get ready for something, I have no idea, but she pulled her off. Then Samira looked across and found Rory, which is what is she called? Mother's helper. That actually is a Girl Scout, and she sells Girl Scout cookies. And she looked over there and saw her packing up. She went over and asked Rory, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I was just told that by the HOA president that I couldn't sell my cookies." She said, Oh, well, can you go put Miles in the bouncy house and I'll be back over there. So she went and she confronted Agnes. And she asked her, so why can't she, I thought this was a community event. Why can't she sell her cookies? She made up some little lame story or whatever. And I guess Samira was like, you know what, whatever. All the while this is going on, Dana shows up at Lynn's house and she was like, hey, are you coming to the party? And she was like, I'm not coming to that. And she tried to come in and Lynn closed the door in her face. She leaves and comes back and picks her lock and just decides, hey, I'm doing an intervention. We are friends and you ain't let nobody in here. So we began to think that you were a hoarder. You were hoarding toenail clippings and urine in jars or something, and it's good to know that you aren't, because nobody's been in your house since Marty passed, right? Just all this weird conversation. And she was like, I brought everything for the bakers for the pies or whatever. She was like, what do you mean? She was like, Marty gave me the recipe before he died or whatever, and so we're gonna make his pies. They get in there and get in the kitchen, and she was like, oh, I forgot everything but the eggs. And she was like, well, we could get them out of your refrigerator. Well, some kind of way, she doesn't want anybody to be in the refrigerator. She says she keeps her eggs in the cupboard. Okay, that's a new one. But she had opened the cupboard and they had a whole plethora of eggs. So anyway, they got to making the pies or whatever, and they made about a baker's dozen. You know what I mean? And so they end up coming out right on time or whatever when the HOA president was actually getting ready to make the announcement that she is stepping down. This is her last year and she's passing over the torch to her daughter. Nobody was paying attention when they seen that Marty's pies showed up, because everybody wanted a piece of pie. And there was all this little hoopla over the pie and nobody heard the announcement. It may have been a couple of people over there, but they had balloons and everything. And of course, because they're both narcissists, the wife was mad, but the daughter, she is oblivious. She looking at the balloons like, oh, this is great. Like, I don't know, like she done won a pageant or something. I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, this whole thing was really crazy. I forgot to mention that all the while, when Naveen started to have a slow dance with the new girl, he looks over and he sees his wife with the dentist. That's who she left him for. And he tries to go over there and talk to his wife. And his wife was like, I see the girl that you're with. She looks nice. Don't screw this up. So I guess there's no room for reconciliation or anything with that. But he was torn up about it and got wasted. He went over and asked Rob if he would go and smooth things over with the new girl that he's talking to. And Rob was like, why would I do that? And he was like, because she'll believe anything you say. Well, Naveen trying to help Rob scrape or flip the burger, which now is like burnt onto the grill. They do a little tussle over the spatula, which made a whole big to do. And Agnes seen them and ran over there and scolded both of them like they were little kids. Agnes's husband would walk by Samira and was like, they're always doing something. Go figure. So Agnes' husband comes by and stands by Samira, and he was like, they're always into something. They always was into something, even when they were young boys or whatever. And so by this time, again, Samira was like, okay, whatever. She goes into her house to meet Rory, and she finds Rory had got the baby on his stomach for tummy time. She was like, okay, cool. She was like, I still got some stuff to do or whatever. Just sit with him for a while and I'll be right back. Samira goes in and she finds this file that Lynn found the other day, and she reads it, and then she goes to digging. She gets to the point where she's going through all the desk drawers and everything, and then she finds the lock drawer. She knows where the keys are, so she goes and she opens the key. She opens the drawer, and lo and behold, it's that phone, that flip phone that he's keeping secret. She finds the charger for it. She charges it up. It comes on. There's a voicemail message from Rob. She plays it, and he's telling Allison on there, you'll regret what you did or something like that. It was very menacing phone call, and it was weird and creepy. So later on that night, because she had already found out that they had a secret little hiding place or something, all these little clues are coming together. Comes to find out, like I said the other day, the second episode when they were running through the woods, she tripped over that. Well, she was calling her brother or whatever, telling him what she found or whatever. And he was like, girl, I don't know what you're talking about. It could be some of anything. Anyway, she's still in the woods or whatever, trying to backtrack and see what she had missed, and end up falling over the thing again. This time she falls and then she goes in and, looks around. She's like, oh, she goes down there. She look around and she's like, what in the world? Well, as she said that, her husband comes down the stairs and says, what are you doing in here? And she turns around and that's the end of the episode. Child, when I tell you it's always something going on this show, this is worth watching. If you guys are not watching this, I don't know what's wrong with you. If you want a good laugh, you want to see some quirky people and them doing all kinds of craziness, you should watch this. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode or this synopsis of the Burbs. Yeah. I want you to like, comment, subscribe. Also, tell me what you think. Are you watching it? Am I missing something? Yeah, this is a good little show. Until next time, thank you for watching.
Bringing ways that may leave you astonished. And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just rolls. And it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured.